All right, a couple days have passed, but I have time now to finally try to get this thing fully functional, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that by the conclusion of this video here today that I'm shooting. So where we left it off before, we got a few things fixed. We fixed that brake on the spindle that wasn't working. We got the tape extraction mechanism lubricated. That's working a lot better than it was before. We did a little bit of general cleanup, but we still have the issue where you put the tape in, the machine will pull the tape out, but it doesn't activate the leaf switch at the back of the head assembly, which is required for it to know that the tape is in the right position and to engage the playback circuitry. So when I started working on this, previously I did not have a service manual. I was kind of going in blind. I don't recommend that, by the way. I was able to find a service manual since I finished that first part of the video on archive.org. And while it doesn't explicitly address how to fix this issue, there are some useful diagrams that I found in there, and I'll show you one in a couple minutes here, or in a moment anyway. And there is a little metal finger that sticks out of part of the mechanism that rotates the fingers that come up and wrap around the head. They're on the inside, a little bit further down, there's a little metal tab that sticks out, and that's supposed to, so if here's the leaf switch, that little tab is supposed to come and push against it like this. When I show you the diagram, it'll be a little clearer. It's my hope that, like some of the other repairs we've done, all I need to do is get a little bit of oil inside of there and maybe manually help that little finger along until it makes contact with the leaf switch at the final resting position where it's supposed to. And to help do that, I grabbed a few pick tools out of my garage, including these ones that have a right angle. I'm hoping I'll be able to get that inside the machine. There'll be enough room where I can kind of hook around that and then pull it forward, maybe work it back and forth a little bit, and get a little bit of oil in there, and hopefully that'll free it up. I think there's a good chance that this will take care of it. I don't know for sure. We won't know until we dig into it and see what happens. So let's see what happens. All right, I've got the service manual in PDF form downloaded and open on my computer screen here, and this is the mechanism. These are the extraction fingers, and what we want to look at is this little bit right here. Do you see this little kind of extra? It's not showing up as a really dark line, it's a dotted line, but that's the little tab that will engage the piece of plastic, which then in turn engages that leaf switch that is preventing the machine from working correctly. So I'm imagining that when we get inside of here and we put a tape in and we push the buttons and all that, that this thing, it rotates like this, right? So this image is showing the mechanism where it would be positioned when the tape is fully extracted, including this finger here. I imagine that it probably sits like this, and then when you put a tape in, it should come and rotate like this and rest there. It's probably hanging up and resting about here. Interesting to note is that this mechanism has sandwiched layers. So these fingers move at a slightly different rate than the gears underneath it do. So it's my hope that we can get a little bit of oil inside of here and maybe lubricate it so that it can move a little more freely. And yeah, I'm hoping that one of my pick tools is going to help us with that. So next step here, I'm going to take the cover back off the machine, get us disassembled, and let's see what happens. Let's see if I can even get access, and let's see if I can even see that little tab in there when we try to thread a tape. Okay, just to recap where we are, we can fast forward, we can rewind, and when we hit play, it threads. If we engage that leaf switch, it'll start playing. Wait a minute. Why did it stop? Shouldn't have done that. We have a new problem. I'll have to poke around and see what's going on. I think I might have to take this transport mechanism out and get a look underneath. I have a feeling I know what's going on. It could be a belt issue. In fact, this counter here, let's take a look. I see it set to all zeros. It shouldn't be after rewinding and fast forwarding. Let's see, if I hit fast forward, this is not advancing. Okay, so one thing I learned while flipping through the service manual is that there is actually a little sensor on the counter, and there's a belt that goes from here to the spindle, and as long as that's moving and the counter is counting, the machine knows that the tape is playing. If that number is not advancing after X amount of time, it'll kill the machine. And that's a way for it to prevent, if you had a tape jam, it's not going to keep trying to feed the thing in there. So, new problem. So let's get this out. Let's take a look underneath, and I suspect we're going to see a broken belt or something of the like. I just pulled the transport holder out, and sure enough, we got a belt that popped loose. So I think I have a spare. This connects to this little sensor here that I'm spinning with my finger. And you'll notice that should slowly cause the tape counter to advance or go backwards, either way. So this is a sensor that uses you see it has all these openings. Usually the way these work on these older machines is they have a light on the bottom and then a sensor, very similar to how this light mechanism works with these sensors, and it counts and it makes sure that it can see the pulse. So it's on off, on off, on off, on off, and when it stops seeing that, that's when it'll tell the machine to disengage. So yeah, for now I might just try to refit that existing belt, but I'm going to see if one of my spares will fit. Maybe I should just do that anyways. If this belt fell off between now and when I was last playing around with the machine, it's bound to happen again. So let me go see if I have a spare. Here's the old belt that we just took out of the machine. Here is the replacement. And check out the size difference. If I overlay them, you can see that the new belt is quite a bit smaller than the old one. So this is an example of a case where fresh belts can make all the difference. These things do stretch out over time. So I'm going to do my best to try to fit this in here. Let's see. I may not be able to do this with just one hand, so it'll go around here. And then, yeah, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this without both hands. So this spindle down here, use this pick tool, there you go. It's going to go into this groove right here. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge. I might tilt the machine on its side to make it a little bit easier. But I'm going to go ahead and do that. So when I am talking to you in a second here, hopefully I'll have that belt nice and secure. Okay, after several tries, I can tell you this was not fun to get that belt on. And it was getting it onto this part here. Ultimately, I did end up having to tilt the machine on its side and used gravity to help me kind of dip the belt down and hook it around the groove and then pull it up over the spindle here. But this feels much better. You can see it's not slipping anymore. And I went ahead and blocked off the light sensors that we have here. So the machine thinks there's a tape inside. So if I fast forward, you can see the counter is now working again. So let's pop this tape in here. Here we go. Take these off. Let's pop the tape in and see if the counter works in both directions. Yeah, boy, this is tough to do with one hand. There we go. Okay. Push rewind. The counter should go backwards. There we go. Much better. Fast forward. The machine should move up, or the counter should move up. There we go. So let's see if that has solved our issue with the machine shutting off when we engage the playback circuitry. So again, I'll have to get a little creative here. Engage that switch. I think we have that problem fixed. Yeah, the machine is not shut down. Okay, let's get back to the original goal here and see if we can get that leaf switch functioning correctly. Alright, we're kind of approaching this from the back of the machine here. Trying to find an angle where we can see the gear inside of there. So, this might be tough. So I'll go ahead and push play. And you can kind of see those discs rotating in there. That's the bottom disc there that you can see, and there's another one that's right above it. There, you can kind of see it there. Sorry, the angle's not, doesn't want to behave here. There we go. Spoke too soon. There. Okay. You can see that one moving, and it's not moving far enough, that one on the top. So it's my hope that I can get that pick tool in there and manually advance it. So what I want to do is I want to get the mechanism moved up into its normal plane position, and I'm going to kill power to the machine, because what that'll do is it'll rotate the gear up as far as it'll go. I can kill power, the gear should stay there, and that way the machine won't try to fight me when I'm, because it's going to take me more than the split second that I have with the machine powered on. So I put the light blockers on here so it thinks there's a tape. Let's push play. Alright, we'll kill power, and now I'll be able to get in there and take a look and see if I can get that gear to move a little bit further. Hello once more. It is now the next day from whence we last spoke, at least in the timeline that I'm making these videos here. So I did try to mess around with my various pick tools to get that little tab to manually advance, and it was really tough. I couldn't quite get in there to pull on it, and when I would kind of be able to hook onto it, it wouldn't budge at all. So I dug a little bit deeper into the service manual, and I believe that I might be able to approach this problem from elsewhere. And off camera, I was kind of seeing about poking around. You know, I don't want to take up too much of your time with me figuring things out. I just kind of want to show you what needs to happen to make this work. But in the process of doing that, I've caused a new problem. When I turn on this machine now, and I'll show you in just a second, you may remember that indicator light that I had to put the pieces of gaff tape onto those light sensors to trick the machine into thinking that there was a tape inside. Well, as is often the case with old fragile electronics that are approaching 50 years of age, I bumped that bulb and it is no longer working. So we need to get a replacement. Now, I think I can get away with putting an LED in there, which has obvious advantages, the main one being that it'll probably outlast the machine as far as functionality. The incandescent bulb only has so much life that it will burn for, and after almost 50 years, this one's finally given up the ghost. So before I do that though, I need to determine the voltage that's going to that existing bulb. LEDs typically run anywhere from 3 to 12 volts depending upon the LED. I am going to take a guess that that bulb is running on 12 volts DC, but I won't know for sure until we take the bulb holder off and hook up a meter to it. Fairly sure it's not going to be AC, but I'm not positive. So that's going to be my next step here. I'm going to take that little bulb holder off. We'll look at the meter, see what kind of voltage it uses and how many volts it uses, and then I'll see about tracking down an appropriate LED. So once that problem's solved, I also think I know how I can get into that that gear ring mechanism to get it to loosen up so that the leaf switch at the back of the VCR or the head will actually activate the way it's supposed to. So first things first, I'm creating more problems as I go. But that happens sometimes when you do these kinds of repairs on old gear. But still, nothing I think that we can't overcome. So let's get that bulb out. Let's take a measurement. Let's see what the voltage is. All right, I've got the screw that with the bulb holder out so I can show it to you. So I'm going to do my best to be able to let you see what I'm doing here. So this is the bulb, and you know, if I kind of maneuver it around, sometimes it'll wake back up, but yeah, this bulb is pretty well dead. Yeah, it's not even working at all anymore. So we're going to have to take that off, and it's not a bulb that just pulls out or unscrews. This one is soldered direct onto this little circuit board here. But the bulb is always on, and weirdly enough, with this bulb burnt out, none of the stuff works. It won't even fast forward or rewind. So obviously it must have some kind of current detection in the circuitry, or it's looking for the there's probably some kind of safety mechanism hooked up in series with the bulb so that when the bulb goes out, it kills power to, some part of the VCR's logic. But either way, we need to get this out. So I've removed the bulb here, and I'm going to set it here. And then I have over here, I think you can see, I have my meter, and I have it set to DC volts because I think this is going to be a DC voltage. The nice thing is, if we check it and it's not going to hurt anything. It just won't give us much of a reading, and then I can flip it to AC. But let's start with that. So these two leads here are going to be directly on the bulb, and so that'll tell us what the voltage is. So let's see. I got to probe these. This is always fun to do this kind of thing. All right. 11.73 volts it says. So essentially this is a 12 volt bulb. And it is DC. And I'll flip the leads to see if the polarity changes. It should. Yeah. Okay, cool. So, as I mentioned, I am going to see about tracking down a surface mount component LED to put in place of that incandescent bulb. I mean, I suppose I could put any 12 volt bulb in there that has appropriate brightness, but I sure like the idea of an LED because they just last and last and last, whereas these incandescent bulbs only have so much life. And it would be nice to not have to replace this again. So that's where we are. I need to track down an LED, and if I don't have one in my grab bag of stuff, I'll have to take a trip to the local electronics store or get online and order something up. But let's see what I can come up with. Hello again. A few more days have passed. I did not have an appropriate replacement bulb or LED on hand when I went looking at the conclusion of the last snippet I shot when you and I were last speaking. So I had to send away for appropriate LEDs, and I've got some that'll run on 12 volts, and these ones are listed as warm white. So it should look similar to the way the bulb originally looked. At least that's my hope. I am going to go ahead and get this old bulb out of here. I have my soldering iron over here. We'll get that set up in a second here. We'll remove the old bulb. We'll put this one in, and hopefully that will wake the machine back up and we can proceed with the rest of our repairs here. So I'm going to get the soldering iron out, and I'll set you up so you can kind of see what I'm doing over my shoulder here. By the way, guys, important to note, anytime you're soldering or really doing anything, wear eye protection. Just do it. It's cheap. You'll be so glad you did at some point. Trust me. Trust me. Just do it. Wear your eye protection. Nothing bad's going to come of it, and only good things can happen. All right, I've got my soldering iron warming up over here, and we've got, let's see, we've got some solder here, and I have some desoldering wick here, and between these bits of tools, I shouldn't have any trouble getting this old bulb out of here and getting the new one in. So let's see how we do. Alright, I installed that LED and it turned out it didn't work. The bulb came on, the voltage was correct, but there wasn't, my best guess, is that there wasn't enough of a current draw to activate the lockout, or to disable the lockout circuitry that is embedded into this machine for when that bulb goes out. But I did find, actually of all things, an automotive incandescent dash bulb that I was able to extract from a holder and solder that in place. So we're back to an incandescent bulb, but a incandescent bulb is better than an LED that does not work. And I've covered up the light sensors, and as you can see, we are back in business here. So what we need to do, we need to lubricate. If you look in here, you can see this bit of business right in here, this kind of ring here. So by looking at the service manual, I was able to determine that this ring is kind of sandwiched in. It's a multi-layer piece. And if I push play, that top ring should move a little bit further than this loading peg here does. So let me grab a pick tool here and watch what happens if I help it along a little bit. Oh, almost. There we go. Look, machine's working. So I grabbed in here on this little peg here and pulled and pushed on this opening over here. And now, if we look at that leaf switch, it's engaged. Imagine that. So the next step here is we need to figure out what can we do to free up these rings so that they'll move without any help. And I think the best thing to do is probably just add a bit of oil and then work the mechanism back and forth a number of times and see how it goes. So let's give that a shot. So I've lubricated those rails a little bit. I've put some oil in there and also some silicone spray, which can help loosen things up. And we're getting more movement than before. You can see it's almost getting there, but what's happening is look at the leaf switch here. We're getting really close to engagement, but as soon as that tab touches where the leaf spring is, you can almost see it. Just barely. It's touching that, but the resistance of there, you could kind of see it move there. The resistance of that tab is pushing back enough on the mechanism to prevent it from engaging. And it will engage though. See, if I give it a little bit of help. Let me do it again where I hold the camera a little bit more easily. There you go. You see it'll engage and it'll stay engaged. So I wonder if maybe that belt on the underside that drives the worm gear, that threads the tape, I'm wondering if maybe that belt is slipping a little bit. I did not change it before. So I think the next step here is to flip this thing over, take the bottom off, and see what's going on, and see if we can manually help it along to that final position. And if we can, maybe a fresh belt will take care of this. All right, we're getting ever so much closer to a solution here. So we got the bottom cover off. I've got the circuit board swung out of the way so we can see the belts again. And this is that worm gear that drives the loading mechanism. So I want to show you, if I find the right, I think this is it. I think this is play. It stalls right here. This motor's still turning, but if I help it along, it pushes it to where it needs to go, and now it is engaging. And I noticed if I squeeze that belt a little bit while I'm doing that, it will grab on. So I think that belt is a bit fatigued. So what we'll do is we'll get that belt off, and I'll see if I have an appropriate size in my my tickle trunk of replacements, if you will. So just looking at the belt a little bit, it does look like it's sitting a little bit, there's maybe just it's maybe just a little bit loose. And I think that might be the difference here. So see if I put a little bit of tension on there, it will grab on. So let's see what happens if we get a new belt on there. I'm going to take the old belt off first, and we can have a look at it and see it may be out of round, which would be another indicator that the belt is fatigued. So let's get that belt off and take a look. I think I've got a brand new belt. You can see that's an RCA 3.0 that I ordered up online. And even just looking in the packaging here, you can see this new one. It's the same thickness, but look at how much smaller it is. So I'll bet you we're going to put that on, and I suspect this may be all we need to do to get this VCR up and running. So let's get this belt on here. This belt also just feels a lot more flexible. It just feels better. So we're going to try to get this on. Maybe a little bit of a challenge, but let's try to hook it on like so first. I will say that, while not impossible, they don't give you a lot of wiggle room when you're trying to secure the belts on this machine. All right, we have that around that pulley. Let me grab that pick tool. So one thing that's nice about these square belts is once you get them around their pulley, you don't have to necessarily make sure they're totally flat, because they will straighten themselves out as soon as you turn them on. So let's power the machine on now that we got the new belt on. Okay, what happens if we push play now? Hey, 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 look at that! I think we have a working VCR. Let's try that again. Gotta find the right button. It's hard to do it upside down. I believe we are in business. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and button this bad boy back up, and yeah, moment of truth will be here soon. We'll pop a tape in and see if it'll play on its own. Alright, here's the moment of truth. Let's push play and see if the machine will engage without my help. I think we have a winner. So before I totally button the machine back up, what I'm going to do, I'm going to reinstall the tape transport mechanism, the holder, or the loading mechanism. I'm going to get that installed. We'll put a tape in, we'll hook it up to the TV, and see what happens when I push play. Okay, here's the moment of truth. I got the TV on. We'll use our test tape. And I have nothing against sacrificing a copy of the South Park motion picture, but I have a couple of different copies of this on VHS, so I figured if this machine was going to chew up a tape, it could be one that I could easily spare. Alright, let's see what happens. Moment of truth. Fingers crossed. I think it's going to work, though.
No!
Look at that!
What do you mean, no? Has been rated R by the Motion Picture Association of America. You have to be accompanied by...
We have a working VCR with good picture and sound.
Next, please. This can't be happening. We have to see this movie, dude.
There's a rolling bar there on your image, but that's just the refresh rate of my camera. The picture looks really good in person.
Wait, I've got an idea.
We have success!
I want 6 tickets.
So I've got the machine buttoned all back up, and before we let you go, I wanted to demonstrate it with a period correct videotape. This is from the second ever batch of home video releases from the Magnetic Video Corporation. This one carries a copyright date of 1978, so this tape would have been available in early 1978 from the second batch of home video releases that was ever made available. So appropriate for the age of this VCR, because this is probably, in fact, at the time when this tape was made available, this is probably the only VHS machine anybody would have been able to play it on. And Magnetic Video Corporation was dubbing these all in real time. They were just using off-the-shelf tapes. But yeah, here you go. So let's pop it in and give a look at how it looks.
By special arrangement with the estate of Charles Chaplin, Magnetic Video Corporation is proud to offer the following classic motion picture on video cassette.
And sure enough, it's a transfer from an old beat-up print. Doesn't look very good, but at the time, this would have been quite the novelty. Well, I just have to say that I am thoroughly thrilled that I have completed the repair on this machine, that it is now working. Off camera, I had it plugged into my TV in the arcade room there, and it ran fine for a solid half hour. I watched a little bit of a couple of different videos actually, and yeah, at the end of the day, what did it turn out to be? A belt, a little bit of lubrication, and then I had to change out, well, a couple of belts, and I had to change out a light bulb that I broke. But it really ultimately, it wasn't a lot that this machine needed to come back to life. So, it took us a while to get there, but we got there in the end. And again, just a most satisfying repair to see this thing functioning the way it is supposed to. Pop the tape in, you push play, and it just works. So, thanks for joining me on this journey. I hope you've enjoyed it. Well, as enjoyable as watching a guy mess around with an old VCR can be. But one more piece of scrap gear that is no longer scrap, and yeah, I'm very happy about this. So, thanks for joining me on this journey, and maybe I'll do another one of these style of repair videos down the road. If you like the video, let me know. There's plenty of old gear that I will be working on in the future, and I can document that as well if that's something that you'd be interested in seeing. Until then, thanks for watching.